Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating biology of stress. We usually think of stress as the ultimate enemy, something to avoid at all costs. But today, we're going to unpack the actual science behind how stress works in your brain. And more importantly, we're going to show you how to keep your logical brain in the driver's seat, even when the pressure is really on. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with the surprising benefit of stress, look at what an amygdala hijack is, explore the brain under threat, identify triggers and physical symptoms, talk about building emotional intelligence, and finish up with strategies for taking control. Section 1. The surprising benefit of stress. Not all pressure is the enemy. This is a concept that completely flips our traditional view of stress right on its head. So is all stress actually bad for you? We usually hear that stress is terrible for our health, right? But some really interesting research out of South Dakota State University reveals a huge twist when it comes to motivation and memory. They tested college students, putting one group under pressure, literally telling their test results would predict their future life success, and another group under no pressure at all. And while the results were definitely not what you'd expect, what they found perfectly illustrates the Goldilocks effect of stress, known in psychology as the Yerkes-Dodson law or processing efficiency theory. Basically, a moderate amount of stress actually pushes us to try harder. In fact, students with naturally low anxiety actually saw their memory performance improve under pressure because it gave them that kick of motivation they needed. But, and this is a big but, if you push past that sweet spot into chronic overload, you hit cognitive interference. Those intrusive, anxious thoughts literally steal away your working memory resources, and your performance absolutely tanks. Section 2. What is amygdala hijack? When the brain crosses the line. Let's see what happens when modern life pushes us way past that optimal peak of performance. This brings us to a really fascinating, kind of scary phenomenon called the amygdala hijack. Psychologist Daniel Goleman coined this term back in 1995. It perfectly describes those moments where you have a super fast, intensely emotional reaction that is just way out of proportion to what's actually happening. Your brain's emotional machinery just takes the wheel before your rational brain can even buckle up. It explains why you might suddenly snap at a coworker or, a loved one over something tiny, totally ruining your credibility in the moment. It feels like you're out of control because, well, biologically speaking, you actually are. Moving on to Section 3, the brain under threat. A neurobiological look. To truly understand why this hijack feels so incredibly overwhelming, we need to take a look under the hood at the physical wiring of our minds. Deep inside the center of your brain, nestled in the limbic system, is the amygdala. It's this tiny, almond-shaped structure, but don't let its size fool you. It is your brain's emotional hub and its ultimate threat detector. Our ancient ancestors evolved this exact piece of hardware to survive literal life-or-death situations, instantly flooding the body with stress hormones to get ready to either fight or run for the hills. Look at the stark biological contrast here between a calm brain and a highly emotional one. During a hijack, your logical frontal lobes, the higher cortex that handles all your rational reasoning, literally shut down. They are disabled. Your attention narrows, your working memory drops off a cliff, and you biologically, physically cannot think clearly. Let's walk through the exact sequence of how this happens, because it proves why your sudden urge to just freak out happens in milliseconds. Normally, sensory input goes into your thalamus, which acts like a relay station, and sends the info up to your cortex for some nice logical processing. But during a hijack, the thalamus decides there is zero time for logic. It takes the low road, bypassing the rational cortex completely, and shoots a direct emergency signal straight to the amygdala. Boom! Instant fight or flight, totally skipping over your conscious reasoning. Section 4. Triggers and physical symptoms. Recognizing the overload. Okay, so if we know the biology, how do we spot an incoming hijack in the real world before we say something we regret? To catch a hijack early, you really have to listen to your body. When it hits, your system gets flooded with a massive wave of adrenaline and cortisol. Physically, you're going to feel it. We're talking rapid heart rate, clammy skin, dilated pupils, fast and shallow breathing. Your body is tricking you into a physical survival response, even if the so-called threat is literally just a tight deadline or a really annoying email. Emotionally, you'll likely feel a sudden, intense surge of anger or panic over something completely trivial. And that brings us to the triggers. Modern life is absolutely full of them, right? Work pressure, harsh criticism, social anxiety, or honestly, just sitting in brutal traffic. But here's the thing you have to remember. The amygdala is an ancient piece of hardware. It genuinely does not know the difference between a physical predator trying to eat you and a nasty email from your boss. It reacts the exact same way to both. Section 5. Building Emotional Intelligence, the Antidote. The really good news in all of this is that we aren't just helpless victims of our ancient biology. We actually have the power to train our brains to respond differently. According to Daniel Goleman, the ultimate antidote to the amygdala hijack is boosting our emotional intelligence, or EQ. By building up these 5 core pillars, self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills, we create this incredibly strong mental scaffolding. Take self-awareness, for example. Just being able to recognize an emotion as it's happening actively keeps your frontal cortex engaged, which basically blocks the amygdala from seizing total control of your brain. Section 6. Strategies for taking control, stopping the hijack. Let's get really practical and look at the exact techniques you can use in the heat of the moment to stop a hijack right in its tracks. When you feel those physical symptoms flaring up, try these out. First, just name the emotion. Simply stating to yourself, "I am mad," forces your brain to use language and analysis. That instantly hits the brakes on the emotional takeover by waking up those logical frontal lobes. Second, use the 6-second rule. It takes about 6 seconds for that initial massive flood of stress chemicals to dissipate in your brain. If you can just delay your response by 6 seconds, you can completely avoid a reaction you'll regret later. And finally, deep breathing. It physically triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, basically forcing your body to chill out. Also, I should mention that maintaining long-term habits like mindfulness, regular exercise, or even journaling actively lowers your amygdala's overall sensitivity to stress over time. Think about it. If you lower your everyday baseline stress level, it takes a much, much bigger threat to trigger a full-blown hijack. You basically transition from reacting impulsively to responding logically. Look, it's completely normal to feel out of control sometimes because, as we've seen today, it's literally just biology. But the next time your heart starts racing over a traffic jam, a looming deadline, or a harsh comment, ask yourself this. Are you going to let your ancient threat detector ruin your entire day? Or will you take those 6 seconds to let your logical brain catch up? The choice, ultimately, is in your cortex. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep that higher brain engaged.